Truth is, I remember when Al Gore's movie came out like it was yesterday. The year was 2006, and it was one of the most important years of my life. It was the year I became a father. My first son was born in fall of that year, which means the entire year was anticipation, excitement, and dread. Absolute terror about what it would take to raise a good human being. My wife had a relatively easy pregnancy, and she wanted to go out all the time. She wanted to go to movies and plays and parties. She was like someone who learned she had 9 months to live and wanted to be entertained as much as possible before it was all over, as if we would never get to go out again. Truth is, she wasn't that far off. My wife and I tried to be conscious of the world around us, and there had been so much talk about the documentary Al Gore was doing on the environment, so we decided to check it out. Because, of course, when you're feeling great anxiety about raising a child, there's nothing more soothing than a documentary about how we are turning our planet into a poisonous wasteland. The theater was pretty full for a documentary, but there weren't very many Black people there. Truth is, I don't remember there being any Black people there besides us. After the movie, we went for steak. That's right, we got steak after watching a film about how greenhouse gases cause global warming. And yes, we were aware that the beef industry is a significant producer of greenhouse gas emissions. My wife wanted the steak. Truth is, I'm usually the one who suggests steak when we have it. My wife often doesn't even order steak when we go to a steakhouse. She might get fish, she might get chicken, and when she does get steak, it's usually a little filet mignon. Still, she often doesn't finish it and turns to me to ask, "Do you want the last couple of bites?" Yes, always. Me, I order the same thing every time we go for steak. The biggest bone-in ribeye on the menu. So I was ready to order. Of course, my wife always orders first. I mean, I know I'm about to eat like a pig, but I'm not going to act like one. Now, my wife always looks at the menu thoroughly before she orders. We've had servers come by 2, 3, 7 times before she was ready to make her choice. But I was hungry for that steak, so I tried to help her along. You looking at the filet mignon? You see, though my wife does always study the menu thoroughly before she orders, the truth is, there are ever only about 3 things on any menu that she would actually order. But this day she surprised me. My wife leaned in and asked kind of sheepishly, "What kind of steak do you usually get?" "I usually get the ribeye. They have a 10-ounce and a 16-ounce here." "I think I'll get the ribeye this time," she says to the waiting waitress. "Which size, ma'am?" Which size, I thought. Of course she's going to get the small. "I'll take the big one," she says to the waiting waitress. "Okay, make that 2. I remember that the steaks were good, but that's not what I remember most. What I remember is that I ate my steak slower than usual because I was mesmerized watching my wife, my petite 5'1" wife, devour that piece of meat in a way that was scary. By the time I was about 2/3 through my steak, my wife was literally chewing on the bone of that animal. Afterwards, she sat back in her seat and in a soft voice that still sounded like my wife said, "I can't believe I ate it all." Then she looked over at my steak and asked, "You're not going to finish yours?" I knew then that my wife was changing. The pregnancy was turning her into something else. She was becoming a mother. For men, becoming a father happens more suddenly, after the baby is born. We don't have 9 months of physical and hormonal changes to prepare us. We try to prepare, we plan, but we have no idea what we're doing. Truth is, it's not until we hold that little person in our arms and feel the connection, unlike anything we've known, that we feel like a father, that we feel like we would take on the world for this person. My first son was born on November 2nd, 2006. I remember holding him that day, wanting to shield him from anything that could hurt him throughout his life, but knowing I couldn't. Later that same month, while holding him, I saw a news story about a young man, 23 years old, who was about to start a new chapter in his own life. His name was Sean Bell. He left his bachelor party the night before he was to be married, but he never made it to his wedding. Instead, he was shot dead while sitting in his car. He and two friends were shot at a total of 50 times by plainclothes New York City police officers. The officer said that the young men fired on them, but the investigation showed that all 50 bullets came from the guns of the officers, and no other gun was found at the scene. The officers were acquitted. I'll always remember crying with my son in my arms that day, as I have many times while holding both of my sons since, when seeing Black men, unarmed and committing no crime, killed by police officers or vigilantes. My oldest son, a teenager now, has asked at different times and different ways why other people don't care about our lives. He has a diverse group of friends, and I want to be careful how I answer his question. Honest, but careful. And he needs an answer. How many times has it been just in his lifetime between the 50 bullets shot at Sean Bell and that officer pressing his knee into the neck of George Floyd? Did you see that man look at the camera as his knee crushed the neck of his handcuffed victim with life draining from his body? The expression on that cop's face declared clearly, "Because I can." He knew that it might only take a past misdemeanor or a report saying that George had a drink or smoked a joint for most of the country to be let off the hook of discomfort. And the white woman in Central Park, she knew she was threatening a man's life by calling the police and lying that a Black man was attacking her. The reason she felt she could is the reason I'm afraid to call the police when something is wrong. Forget for a minute all other inequalities. Do you understand how different the world is for her than for me? For that reason alone, it's no wonder there aren't many Black people in that theater for Al Gore's film. It's not that we don't care about the environment, but it's difficult to focus on melting ice caps when you are terrified every time your son walks out the door. Hands up, pinned down, handcuffed, in our cars, in our own homes.
We all see the videos, the relatively few times an incident is caught on video. But the truth is, cities still had to burn for that killer, that thug, to be arrested. For a Black family, this is terrorizing. Why does it take so much for so many white people to see that their fellow countrymen are being killed in cold blood? I really want to know so I can answer my son. Does the loss of these lives matter much to those who don't have young Black men in their families? Or is it just an inconvenient truth?